Well, hello to all of you faithful podcast listeners. It's Nathan here, and as you can tell, I don't have Jason or Ed with me because I've kicked them out. No, really what happened was we did record a podcast this week, but unfortunately, our hard drive on our recording computer crashed, and so we only got just a little bit of it. In fact, all we got was just the nonsense fun part where we're just answering a bunch of personal questions, which maybe that's the only part you care about. Well, in that case, we have that. In fact, we're still going to let you have that because we know how hungry you are for our great podcast material, and we don't want to just leave you out in the dark on that. So you're still going to get a little bit of our podcast this week, but next week we'll be back with a regularly scheduled podcast for you, and I hope you enjoy what we've got right here.
Greetings and salutations to our fine podcast audience.
Hello, everybody.
How's everybody doing?
I'm doing good.
I am too.
Nathan, you all right?
Yeah, well, you know, the sun is like really shining today.
It's a beautiful day out
It is a
today.
nice day. We
Very
should
nice.
be outside.
It made me notice, and I don't know why you notice things when you notice them, but 2 of our 3 cameras have lights on them, and 1 does not, but it has the sun.
It has the sun.
It doesn't need a light. I just
right.
was looking at that one right there, has no light on it.
All right.
All the trees out here got leaves changing. If those of you who watch our online service, if you didn't notice, Heidi, who was our video host on Sunday, was like beautifully backlit with like all these leaves falling behind. It was very fall aesthetic. It was just a beautiful thing. Bill, our camera person, who's also on staff and does many other things, but was our camera person on that shoot, was very proud of it and several times came and talked to me about how good that shot
That's
looked.
what Bill does.
I also will say he talked to me about it and said many things that he should have known by these years. I went, huh?
Yeah. Nice.
Because it had to do with
It
aesthetics.
had to do with this, how things look, and I'm like, huh.
It don't care about
I don't
aesthetics.
This week, this Sunday, producer Joel is shot in the same location singing a song, also beautiful. But he told me today one part of it creeped him out, and you can tell me later what part might have creeped Joel out. If you know, you can tell me.
Okay.
Now, while you're listening to the song and should be thinking about Jesus, you'll be going, what creeped Joel out?
As if they didn't have enough to
And
distract
I'll just say, if you're always creeped out by Joel,
Yeah, it may
then
just be
you should
Joel's
just-
presence.
Maybe.
poor Joel.
But you may see it.
I am
Maybe.
not personally always creeped out by Joel.
No, I didn't say that. I said many people have told me
That they are
I get
always creeped
emails
out by
on a
Joel.
regular. I get many emails on a regular. Joel is creeping me out, and I'm like, well, what am I
Nothing
gonna
we can do about
do?
that. I understand.
But we can't bring producer Joel on to refute any of this, so we'll just leave it standing that allegedly Joel creeps. people out.
He's in a total another space and time right there.
Just right across over on the other side.
Ed, you know you're about to get an email from his mom.
Yes.
This is the
She
first
may not
time-
watch the podcast.
the
She
first
only
time-
watches the service because Joel is on the
if she
show.
knew how much we talked about Joel,
Oh, she'd
she
listen.
might listen.
That's right.
That's true.
Yes.
He is the unspoken hero of
All right,
this.
I'm gonna
No,
say
he
I'm,
has spoken often.
I'm gonna save Joel and say let's stop talking about
Okay.
it. Let's move
All
on.
right.
Okay. He's so thankful for that right now.
For people that often ask me where Steve Clark is these days, he's walking by
He's
right
walking right there.
He's right there.
He looks so peaceful.
He does.
He's enjoying the weather. We're not.
Exactly.
Okay.
You are. So where's Steve Clark? He's right here.
He's just walking outside.
Speaking of the online service on Sunday, I pulled my 2 favorite questions
Okay.
off the service this week and I love to hear y'all's answers. All right, so here we go. Which of these decades did you love the most and why? 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s? And those are our only choices.
And some of y'all can't really.
I can only talk about the 90s.
Yeah, I know. That's
say.
what's so fun about it.
I have the full range.
You
I can
do?
talk about all of those. You can't talk about the 60s.
Well, I can talk about what I know of the 60s.
I
he
can
could
think
do
about
that.
all of them things
I
that I know.
know. But
I'm
yes,
going
you
to
are
say
correct.
I choose the 1840s.
Okay. What'd you like about that, Ed?
No.
I think most of my life I probably would have said if I could go back to live in any of those particular periods.
Yes.
I think I probably would have said like the 60s or the 70s because there was so much change going on in our world. Turns out not enough change
There you
going
go.
on in our world. So I don't know if I'd go back to any of those times. But I grew up in the 90s, and so I'm very much a 90s kid in that sense. And I don't know what I love most about Is it what do I love most about the 90s?
Which one you love and why?
Why do I? Okay, so I have to choose the 90s. It's the only one I lived in. What I love most, I like a lot of 90s music and a lot of 90s movies, I guess. So I don't know. I don't know what I loved about growing up in the 90s because I didn't grow up in any. I don't know. I didn't
You
grow
don't
up
have
in any
anything
other
to
time.
compare it to.
I don't know.
Just like I was going to say,
Surge. I liked Surge drinks. That's what all
great.
90s kids are supposed to say. I love Surge.
Didn't they bring that back?
They did, and it's terrible. It's apparently
terrible.
very bad for you.
Of course
so.
it is.
I do remember that back where, and you guys probably remember this better, I don't know what was in that Quick Trip area before there was a Quick Trip there, but I remember going...
Trees.
Okay. But there, before Quick Trip was there, that J&R Clothing shopping center was already there.
Just for a short time.
Oh,
a
is that
very
right?
short time.
Okay, well then maybe it was during that time. I remember there was a Surge kickoff thing that happened there, and me and a good friend of mine from this church went to that.
Wow.
To the Surge thing. That's why we got Surge T-shirts. That's those T-shirts.
T-shirts.
So
Okay.
that's what I remember about the 90s.
That's probably the only thing worth remembering from the 90s.
Yeah.
No. I would have, and what's funny is I would have probably said the 80s, but for some of the same reasons you did. When I think about that decade, I think about movies and music. And I think it has a lot to do with that's when you were young and you were
Sure.
growing up, and you have some type of nostalgia for that for a little bit. You know, you just, I don't know. There's something, even if it's horrible and you know it's horrible. You ever notice that?
Yeah.
There's stuff that you grow up with, and looking back on it,
takes you back to a certain place. in
yeah,
time.
and you go, that really was bad. That you know, like some of the movies that I've sit down and I've tried to watch with my kids, and
They're horrible.
they are bad. But there's this little thing in me that goes, that's cool, but I don't know why. You know,
Yeah, 'cause
like I watched, for example, I tried to.
This is going to be somebody's favorite movie you're about to
It
trash.
will, and that's okay. I saw on like one of the streaming services that they had Gremlins. Remember that movie, The Gremlins?
I've
I'm ready
actually
for this.
never seen all of Gremlins.
Really, and I
My
loved
wife
it as a
wants
kid.
to watch it with my kids.
I loved it as a kid, and I watched it, and my kids were like laughing at me. And after it was over, I was like, "Yeah, I see why you're laughing at me."
It's not good.
It wasn't great.
You know what's the worst of all of those? And this always upsets people is Goonies. Goonies is objectively bad. There's not much good. I mean, just nothing almost good about it or redeemable. Even just from like a storytelling perspective, the movie does not make much sense.
No, it doesn't.
But, you know, people like the truffle shuffle. So
Of course, I actually did watch.
I don't
that
know what
movie.
any of those things are.
It's just
you
making
gotta watch
fun
the
of
movie.
a slightly overweight kid. He's not
is?
even that overweight.
Oh, that's
and
the other thing
He
is
picks
you
up
go
his
back-
shirt and jiggles his belly. It's very
Sometimes you go back and you watch this stuff and you go, "How was that not offensive?" And
Yeah,
It
there's a
just
lot.
It just wasn't.
yeah,
You don't even have to go back very far.
No, you
true.
do not.
That's
You,
true.
you go back to the 2000s. You watch shows from 2002, 2003, 2005.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to find things you go, wow.
Especially if you watch at like the birth of reality TV, where you kind of have more, I don't know if common folk is the right word, but just people who aren't thinking about PR and marketing,
No.
and they're just
When they actually
thinking-
weren't
They're just
scripted.
talking the way all of us spoke, and you're like, wow.
Yes, you're like, oh, you don't say that, you know.
So
when you
Ed-
said movies,
Yeah.
what I did say is, of all of those, if I had to choose movies, I would actually choose the 70s for movies. I think the 70s have vastly
disagree
better
with that.
movies.
There's some movies I still love that are
Me
from
too.
the
Yes.
the 70s. That
Me
are,
too.
Are not the ones, they're not like the stuff you mentioned, Goonies and stuff. We
Yeah.
had all of those things too, but it's not that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But there are some good movies from the 70s. So my favorite time of those,
you get to choose from them all.
I'm going to choose the 90s as well, mainly because that's so much good stuff got started in my life in the 90s. So this church started in 1991. My family was growing and doing well in the 90s. The first part of it was hard, but most of my memories about the beginning of this church and that whole era of life are nothing but. There were some very difficult things and some times where I almost quit, but most of it is exceptionally good. So I would have to go back to that. I have good memories about the other things. 60s and 70s, I don't have as great of memories about as I probably could have if I'd have lived a normal kind of life. But
Yeah, if I the 90s for me was the decade of change in my life.
yeah,
So that was when everything just started for my adult life. So yeah, I have to agree with that as well.
yeah. So
I hate the culture of the 90s though. Other than, well, yeah, I pretty
there's
much
so much of the 90s where it not only was I changing and growing, but so many things that I take for granted now. I mean, I can remember my first cell phone, which was, again, the big brick phone, and I can just remember the wonder of all of that and how quickly things were changing, and things
Beginning of
changed
the
in
internet,
the
really. I mean,
yeah, the internet. I can remember when
widespread.
we got the community-christian.net website. I can
goodness.
remember the young man who set that up for us
Yeah.
because none of us understood how to do it. And you know, that all was just, it was all wonder and change and all of that. I like all of those kind of things, even though I was older at the time. There were things, you know, in the 60s and 70s, things were changing, and I know people that are probably my age now who if they were 60 in the 70s, they thought things are changing so fast, but it didn't seem fast back then.
By and large, the societal changes have gone quicker since the internet. And now, like you talk about, we take it so much for granted because you think about, and I even remember being just a kid in the 90s and like understanding like dial-up, everything's going to be slow. It's going to take, like I remember the first time like I understood I could get movie trailers and music videos and things like that. And I'd have to sit there and download it. And I'd have to go do something else, come back, wait for the little quick time to get up, watch it. And now if I'm on a cruise ship in the middle of the ocean and I have to pay $7 for internet and it's barely load, it buffers a little bit during the YouTube thing. One of us, me or my wife, will go, "What is taking so long?" I'm like, "We're in the middle of the
Yes,
ocean.
that's
It's
right.
sending a thing to space and coming back down."
And it still runs pretty good, and I'm
Yes.
like, I can't watch this. I just can't watch it.
If I had that signal in 1999, I'd be like, "This is magic.
It
What
is.
wizardry." Not even like in the middle of the ocean, right here in this building
Yeah.
with a landline connected to it. I'd go, "That's the fastest thing anybody's ever used."
Yes.
Some of my favorite memories of our very first office building that we had is when right in the middle of the day, Ed would yell through and go, "We're getting on the internet. Check your email."
Exactly.
Remember that?
Yes, because we only had one modem. We would all connect
Yes.
through the same modem.
Yes.
It was probably 9600 baud, you know, or whatever those were.
Yep.
And
Yeah, I'd hear the sound. I go, "Oh, let me open up my email."
and then we'd all go, "Did everybody download
Did
their
everybody get
email?"
it? And then you turn it off,
And turn it off.
and then we'd work.
Yeah, that's right. I'd forgotten that.
Good days. Good times.
Welcome to the Pepperidge Farm Remembers podcast.
So question number 2, and I have 2 to do this week.
two.
Question number 2 is related, but maybe not.
Okay.
What's the worst style choice you ever made?
Most people would say I'm making it right now. From the amount of comments from people I get about my well, not anymore. I cut my hair, so I don't get as much comments about my hair anymore. But my hair and my beard, I think
Wow.
most people are saying I'm making it right now,
Okay.
which is
Well, you own it there, man. You
I'm
Nathan.
it. I guess
You just go ahead.
I just got what I'm doing what I do. I guess.
I you know, there was a period of time where it served me really well in some things I was doing in my life. I had really long hair. I can't grow facial hair much. I have a little spotty. Even then I would let that go because I was unkempt. I didn't. Hygiene habits were not at the height of importance to me, and it served me in things that I wanted to have happen for people to not get close.
Good reason.
So anyway, those were really bad choices when I look back at. Thankfully, again, because I had pushed most people away, there aren't tons of photographs of that because there were no people that wanted photographs of me.
So there's no evidence of this.
Yeah, so there's
That's
very
good.
little evidence.
Yes.
It's when I talk about that, people can't believe. Well, I won't seem to say it. That's all true. It's just true, but it's not.
Mm.
You know, here's one that I think my wife will attest to. When we started dating in high school, and pretty soon after I started working at Brewster's Ice Cream here in Noonan, and pretty much exclusively, except for Sundays, I just wore my Brewster's uniform everywhere I went.
Well, all right.
I didn't ever feel like changing
is
out of
true.
it. I would go to class. Once we were married and in college, I would show up to class in my manager's uniform, Brewster's uniform, with these nasty shoes that had ice cream stains everywhere. When we'd go on dates, I'd go pick her up. I'd be in my Brewster's uniform. So that's probably. But once again, when you say style, it wasn't a style choice. It was 100% an ease of ease of.
Well, and I'll
it's a
say-
miracle that you're married, isn't it?
Everything's a miracle in my life. But yes.
I will say, and you handed that off to your younger brother, who's
did the
never
same
going to hear this because he definitely isn't
No,
listening
he's not
to us.
listening to this.
He was the worst I ever saw. That if he had something to do at Brewster's at 7:00 at night, yet he was going to go do something. He dress for work, and he would. I mean, it didn't
Yes.
matter what happened. He was wearing that all day
Yeah.
long.
Less laundry.
He just refused to change clothes,
That's
no
true.
matter what.
That's true. It was a big deal for my wife when I would show up places like in a T-shirt and blue jeans. She'd be like, "Oh, wow, you must be taking me somewhere nice." I'd be like, "Yep, here we go."
That's great. Okay.
How about you, Jason?
I was gonna say I wouldn't want to be specific about all my bad choices style wise, but I will just say this: it happened in the late 80s, early 90s, and MC Hammer was really popular at the time.
Are there photos?
We need photos
I can
of
only
this.
imagine.
Lord, we hope not.
I'll say this, Jason, of everyone on our, and you and I have known each other a long time, you've changed your hair as many times as most people have.
Yep.
That's
mean,
true too.
When you're really trying hard to make something work.
I just say, if you look at it, you can always tell things from a different area because Jason looks, my hair now is just my hair. It's the
Yes,
same.
that's true.
But
Yes. And I have the pre and post beard.
You do.
That's
do.
what everyone does. We call it Baby Nathan and not Baby Nathan. I was 27, but well, that's not true.
well, I think if you shaved your beard off now, people would be shocked at how much younger you look.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so too.
I like to blame most of my choices on my wife.
That's always a good choice.
That's not necessarily true all the
Also,
time.
we'll never hear this.
Never
You
hear
can
this.
Say whatever you want to hear.
I like to blame it on her because you know my goal in life is to make her happy.
Sure.
And whatever I think will make her happy, I will do, no matter how bad I think it looks. If she comes to me and says, "Yeah, I think you look good with longer hair," I'll grow it out.
Yeah, I
just
don't
to
blame
see
you.
if that works. And so I think that's what happened one day. Because I had a long hair phase.
You did.
Maybe not like yours, but.
No.
I did have a longer hair, and because she was like, "I think you look good with long hair." I'm like,
I think
All
that's
right.
also, though, a compliment to you that your wife thinks there are things she can do to improve your look. My
Yeah.
wife gave up on that. And
Yeah.
so I said, I think I'm going to grow a beard. And she goes, okay,
Yeah.
whatever. You
that a
wore a
shot.
Brewster's uniform every day for the first 5 years of our marriage, so anything's uphill.
And
from
Becky will try to buy me clothes, and I'll go like, "That my clothes aren't worn out."
But your wife,
"Take the hint."
You know,
she sits
she's
and
like,
she dreams, one day I'll
She'll
fix Jason. I'll fix the way he looks.
That's
My wife
true.
goes, there's no way to fix the way this man looks.
That's true. Yeah.
She just gave up. So that's a compliment to you.
I'm happy there's hope left in her.
That's right. She still got some hope.
Awesome. Okay.